I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Johnson Jazz Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Stock.
Tune into
Donttap
Donttap podcast.
Donttap
podcast.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
We are back, Donttap podcast, after what was a week that, the fights anyway started off pretty well. We were doing really well. My dog hit. I know that you had a couple spots hit a little bit early, and we're going into that co-main and main event, and I think almost everybody felt the same way. Although the lines weren't, you almost feel better when you have a chalk 300 line that it's going to hit on a parlay. They weren't chalk 300 lines, right? They were a little bit closer knit. And you look at Brandon Moreno, I don't know what he did. Both guys, you both shit the bed. We had two, not even apple pie shitters. These were gargantuan dumps that were taken in the co-main and the main event. And not to take anything away from, their adversary's opponent or performances. Roy Baugh looks sick, and I am extremely happy for that man. To finally get that chip off his shoulder and that fuck you to everybody who always bets against me. And that, he's always the bridesmaid, never the bride type shit. And the guy goes in there and just gangsters the co-main, the main. But how did you feel about the card? Still some decent spots. In hitting a dog on our ticket, and I know we missed our parlay. I ended up hitting my own personal parlay. Still came out okay. How did you do for the?
It was a little bit of a bittersweet type of card for me. It basically broke even. Shouts to Luis Rodriguez, though. Sketchy first round ended up coming through in the clutch. That was really my big bet of the week. And then I had the parlay. Moreno. It just felt like the main card, the script got flipped, I would say. That was the theme of the weekend. The script got flipped on UFC Mexico, meaning Raul Rojas Jr. gets taken off the card. The co-main event, Brian Ortega ends up coming through. You talk about a script flip. The dude literally jumped up and down when Bruce Buffer said his name and rolled his ankle. The line goes up 40 cents right before the fight starts. Talk about the bookies eating. They ate off of that one. And then the main event, just really weird. Brandon Moreno didn't even really shoot for any, didn't really do anything conservative on the takedowns. Maybe Brandon Royval's takedown defense got better, but takedowns were really the theme of that one, because if you remember in the first fight, he was really losing on the striking exchanges. He almost got dropped a couple of times, but he was able to really secure the takedowns and controlled some positions that ended up really working out for a rear naked choke. I thought we were going to kind of see the same type of game plan, but really just if you would have told me that was a 25-minute striking match, probably wouldn't have bet on the fight.
Yeah, and there's a couple other spots I wish that I had a little bit of not going with my initial thoughts or gut instinct was Zellhuber and not trusting the fact of his distance and his range management. I know he's been touched a couple of times, but Prado had nothing for him. He was swinging at air the whole time and his face got marred right the fuck up. Zellhuber coming in at decision was one of the first lines that jumped out at me. Uruguay and Zellhuber decision were the two props that jumped out at me, and it was juicy, I think, at one point at plus 350, or maybe it could have been a little bit lighter than that. But that was one I should have just went with my gut. I was trying to play a little bit safer and chalky or some stuff. It ends up being, I think it was a spot a lot of people sort of were hesitant on, and it ends up being a spot that they were like, oh shit, yeah, should have put a little bit more on it. Uruguay came in and was pretty solid. Obviously, we got rid of the Charas situation. That fight now is finally put to bed, and we can move on. But all in all, not too bad. But I would like to, as I said to you going into this fight card, I almost feel too confident. I almost feel like I have everything lined up too well. And for me, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I'd rather feel a little uneasy going into it, and I feel like everything's going to hit. That's never a good thing. But I'll let you bring in your first spot for UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik Gaziev.
Yeah, this is a very hard card from the aspect of we're early on in the week. There's some interchanging parts throughout the card. There's not really this card is kind of just thrown together. We're supposed to be in Saudi Arabia, not in Saudi Arabia. But first spot of the week we're going to look at here. One of those cards where I'm just not going to overthink it here, even though there was the Brandon Moreno spot last week that ended up burning me. Looking to parlay probably with the rest of the public here with Muhammad Makayev here over Alex Perez. This is just one of those type of fights where two people going in two different directions, obviously. Just Alex Perez's inactivity has really been his Achilles heel since that title fight against Davison Figueiredo. Definitely one of the definitely probably getting paid double of what Mikhaev is probably getting paid for this fight. So it seems like one of those type of fights where it's like a passing of a torch in the division. This is the right type of level, step up a competition. I think Mikhaev of recently might have a nasty taste in the better public eye with the Tim Elliott fight and the Yafel Philo fight. And the Malcolm Gordon fight. All three were round 3 finishes, were in fights where he was kind of losing prior to it. But I think this one's going to go a little bit different here. I think a lot of people are going to bet the late round props on Muhammad Mikhaev, but I think he's going to get it done nice and early here. And I think we're going to see an active Muhammad Mikhaev for the summer.
See, this is my second spot on the card. I'm pretty heavy on Mikhaev this week, and I've been somebody who's been fading Mikhaev almost the whole way or just staying off his fights because I wanted to know what was going on. And you could take two angles to what you just said. You said that, he sort of has been losing in fights, or even Malcolm Gordon was out grappling him at points. What was the fight where he gets injured in? And it's okay if you
Philo won.
Yeah, against Philo. So Philo injures his leg in what was it, the third round, pretty much destroys his knee, and he still fights through it. He's shown that he fights through it. He shows that he fights for himself. He fights for his dollar. He can lean on his grappling. He can lean on his wrestling. And man, it just ultimately, he seems to have a methodology. He drowns guys late in fights and submits them. So as much as and I'm down to actually, we can maybe build him into a parlay for this week between you and I, and we're going a lot different with our methodology with our parlay this week, because last week just blew up right in our face. But with Mikhaev, I actually have Perez is going to be taken down quite a bit. Perez does have some power in his hands. He's pretty well rounded, but ultimately it's, he's sick. He doesn't make weight. We know how many canceled fights he had. We know the narrative with that. But how does that play out in the cage? His cardio isn't the greatest, and he's going to be dragged down, rinse and repeat if he gets back up. If not, he's going to be controlled on the ground. So if you look at this, there's Mikhaev sub plus 140. There's Mikhaev maybe dominant decision, holding a top heavy game and having control most of the fight, maybe having a moment where we question him for a minute. But wins the decision at plus 160. I'm probably going to hit this as a sole spot Mikhaev sub decision, even if it's chalk, because I think that's the way the fight finishes. You could get him at a KO maybe, but
I wouldn't
what's that sitting at right now?
out the striking narrative, because I feel like the biggest difference in this fight compared to his other fights is every time he's fought in the UFC, the person that he's fought, his opponent, has been somewhat a bigger flyweight. Like Tim Elliott is a big ass flyweight. You used to fight at bantamweight, flopped around between the divisions. The same thing with Philo, same thing with Gordon, same thing with Charles Johnson. This one is a little bit different. He's going to have a height. I think he's going to have a pretty sizable advantage over Alex Perez. They're listed.
So you're suggesting maybe plus 125 inside the distance then? You're saying that he's going to have.
Yeah, I think the striking exchanges will look different here, where Mikhaev has a reach advantage. He'll have a probably 6 to 7 inch reach advantage here in this one. And if he's bigger than Alex Perez, he's going to be able to work the wrestling a little bit easier than he has been in other fights. Like Tim Elliott's a weird ass striker to fight or something like that. I think this one's pretty straightforward. He's going to be able to touch him up. With him being able to touch him up, I think that's going to be able to give him takedown success early on in this fight. And with Alex Perez, with the inactivity, one way you could look at it is could be the cardio, but the other way you could look at it is it might take him a second or two to warm up. And that's not the type of person and the type of style you want to be fighting, trying to warm up. Because I think Mikhaev's trying to go for a quick finish. This isn't like some type of crazy big card. He's been on UFC 294, Makhachev, Volkanovski, UFC 286, Edwards Usman 3, Oliveira, Makhachev. It's been a while since he's been on a fight night card. The first couple of fights of his career were on fight night cards, but those are cards that are kind of like set up for him a little bit with easy opponents. I think this is a Mikhaev highlight finish here. Alex,
so the over-under right now is set, because I'm going to cap you on this one, right? Because although I think I'm more playing it safe in the fact that although I really think that the finish comes inside the distance, and I think that he does, like, I was going to probably just do a sub prop and leave it at that, and then parlay it. That was my initial instinct. But then the decision sort of creeps into my head more and more again. But yes, the durability of Perez and what's going on with Perez, and then the size discrepancy, which I'm actually just looking at a little bit more. Over under right now is that, like, the under is -105, the over is -125. So if you're suggesting that it doesn't go the distance, like the fight doesn't go the distance, is -125. Would you suggest that if somebody is of that thinking if they wanted to attack some kind of inside the distance scenario, would you suggest that maybe just taking the fight doesn't go the distance might be the safest way to play it if you want to attack it that way and not just parlay it?
Nah, sometimes in MMA, it's a very unique sport where you can have the favorite win and you can have them in your parlays, but you can also take a gamble in the round props. And I definitely think there's going to be some juicy round props on Mikhaev. Like, I
Plus
can't
800,
imagine.
third round sub is getting sprinkled by me. That's my DGen play on this, and it's not going to be a suggested play, but a plus third round sub has happened multiple times. You sort of almost got to throw a coffee
That's what
on
I'm
that,
saying.
man.
Round props, the
Yeah.
round props in this fight are definitely the way to go. You can get paid bank here on the round props.
For
'Cause
my
I think
first pick of the night, that is one way I'm attacking it. I'm attacking it multiple ways, and round props will be how I finish it off with a little bit of extra plus money. But
if you
but
look
yeah,
at
okay.
all
So
of
it's good that we're talking
Perez's,
through it, though. Like, so you
yeah,
don't
if you
think
look at
you
all of
think Mikhail
Perez's
probably does win
finishes,
this inside the distance?
yeah, if you look at all of Perez's finishes, like times he's been getting finished, they're all round one, round two, early on in the fight off of like
Yeah.
a submission. So like, if he's going to get it done, I think it's going to be a decision for Perez. But if Mikhail's going to get it done more times than not, bro, I think it's probably going to happen like quick, like first, second takedown.
Maybe I'm just giving Perez too much credit. Because although he has been around the UFC for a long time, it's more because he's had so many damn canceled fights and not because he's been active and fighting within the organization. So,
I mean,
okay.
Joseph Benavidez submitted him in round one. I mean, Joseph Benavidez, legend of the sport, but not some ace jiu-jitsu grappler that I would think of when I think of Joseph
No,
Benavidez.
Mr. Benavidez is definitely not that. So, okay, let's jump into my first spot, or what was technically my first spot on my card. I'm going to go with somebody. It's a little bit of a fade narrative, a little bit of a backing of somebody who's just a hot prospect, man, in Vitor Petrino. Someone who is amazing athlete as far as his cardio, as far as his physicality. He's able to push muscle. He's a muscular dude, and he's able to push that for multiple rounds and push it at a high pace, which is very impressive and shows you where he's at as far as athletics. So pretty strong wrestling, solid positioning. His positioning is pretty solid as far as his top heavy control. The biggest thing actually is going to be the takedowns in this. So although there is power coming both ways, the takedowns, we have Vitor Petrino coming in with about averaging 4 takedowns in a fight, a little bit over 4 takedowns a fight. And we have a guy on the other end who, in Tyson Pedro, like, I know he can finish somebody in the first round. I know he can present that power, and I know that it's there. And I know that he'd like to basically get rid of the Modestas Bukakis fight and get rid of that out of his head. That was at home. That was in Australia. He faded very, very bad at home. I don't understand. There was no travel involved. There was nothing that came out that he had a bug. It was just that, he got a little defensive because people were attacking him, because I was heavy on him in that fight. And Bukakis just ended up sort of outworking him in a decision loss. He has gas tank issues. He's a great, great hammer, but he's an absolutely horrible nail. And when you have somebody who has cardio, wrestling, power, the only question on this one is a level and jump up in competition. This is a little bit of a competition check in Petrino going up to against Pedro. But I think Petrino inside the distance at -135 is a play for me 1,000%. Petrino round 2, Petrino round 3. If you get him at round 2, it's plus 375. Get him at round 3, it's plus 600. And then to be safe and parlay it up, I'm going to parlay fight doesn't go the distance at -290. This isn't going the distance. It's not going to go the distance. Either Pedro's going to get drowned on the ground at some point and get finished either early or late if he gets taken down early, and or someone's going to go out on the feet. So no matter what, I think that fight doesn't go hits. That parlayed up at -290 sort of gives you a little bit of a safety. But you don't have to touch the round props. But I like the inside the distance Vitor Petrino. That's my play. -135, and if you want to sprinkle up round props, you can. But I think this is going to go more than one round. I think that Petrino will likely take him down. There's going to be a little bit of a scramble on the ground. These guys are going to respect each other's power initially, and then you're going to see some fight unfold in round 2, and Petrino take over. So what's your thoughts on this one? Petrino, I know he's sort of the darling of the week. Could be an apple pie shitter. I don't think so, though.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna have to go against you on this one. I actually don't like Victor Petrino here at this price tag. When I first saw the fight announced, I kind of thought Petrino was going to be the side, but kind of digging deeper into this, man. This is one where I just feel like a lot of public money is coming in on Petrino. But the line hasn't swelled up. Like we saw Mikhaev was around like 275. You saw public money go up on that. That line's probably going to close somewhere here at -400, but not the same here for Victor Petrino. I think it's going to be in a lot of people's parlays, and I could definitely see this being a parlay buster on the other side. Tyson Pedro, this is the first time I could say Victor Petrino might be the smaller guy here in the cage. Like Tyson Pedro is probably going to be bigger than him. I think that has the capabilities of beating Victor Petrino. Petrino gets touched in the face. There's a lot of red flags here. If there is one person that I think that is undefeated that could lose their 0 for this card this weekend, I definitely would be Victor Petrino for me.
Yeah, I just think the wrestling is going to be a huge difference. I mean, Pedro's there to be taken down, and the size, the difference isn't really much. We have the reach advantage is like not even a full inch, and the size advantage is 1 inch.
I don't know,
really,
man.
I sort of like Petrino a little bit smaller anyways, punching up, being a little bit smaller against a guy who doesn't really have necessarily great footwork, and being in on those hips, 4 takedown average of a fight, and he has a 70% takedown accuracy. I think you're going to see.
I feel like
Pedro
you're underestimating Tyson Pedro's wrestling here in this spot. Granted, like I could definitely see this fight hitting the ground, but I also don't think that Victor Petrino is some like ace jiu-jitsu grappler that's just ripping big ass light heavyweights to the ground. I just don't see it. I think Tyson Pedro's takedown defense is a little bit better than advertised, and I think his submission offense and defense is a little bit better than advertised. Who's to say this doesn't hit the ground and Tyson Pedro doesn't get a submission by reversing the position? Like, I think he's going to be the bigger guy here in the cage, and we're talking about -300 price tags. We got to talk about what-if scenarios, and there's a lot of what-if scenarios in Victor Petrino that I can't really march out. All of his performances are like kind of like underwhelming. Like it looks good in hindsight, but
you
like
want that though. You know that you want something that feels like it's sort of like,
fight,
and he won again.
He was getting.
And I'll be honest with you, Pedro's
in the
defensive
Marcin
wrestling
Pacquiao fight, he was getting touched up and pulled up with an arm triangle in round 3. So it looks good in hindsight. But we were watching that one. I mean, Marcin Pacquiao was touching him up in the face. Like, if you're telling me that you went to the decision with Anton Turkalj, like he's not some like, I don't know, man. Like those wins have not really aged.
But if you have a guy who is wrestling and holds position,
look at
and
what
gains,
Tyson Pedro did to Anton Turkalj. He walked him across the cage, punched him in the face, he dropped, and he quit.
But you got to look at the one thing you got to look at with this is you're looking at the vividness. And I'll use your boy Jimmy the Bags concept, vividness of you're thinking of this power coming from Pedro. And even the sub is off his back. He's not actually that great. He sort of fades off his back very quick. The next thing is his takedown defense is 52%. Shogun Rua, I know it's 2018, and I know that you could get way better by then. And he took him down 3 times, though. In his life, he got taken down by Shogun Rua 3 times. Here's my thing. 52% against a guy who has a 70% takedown accuracy and 4.15 takedowns in a fight. It's a matchups makes fights thing. All I'm saying is, don't go on the Pedro side of this. If you're the antagonist of me picking the Petrino side, I get it, but please don't put your money into Pedro. There's no value there.
I think that Pedro is one of the better underdogs of the week. If you're looking at all these big favorites on the card, you're telling me that Victor Petrino is -290. I mean, you're telling me that Tyson Pedro is +215, and Jamie Pickett, for example, is like +265. I mean, I think Tyson
Smart
Pedro
man once said, You said pick who's gonna win first, right? Don't look at the line. So fuck the line. Throw the line out the window.
I think Pedro could win.
Modestus.
I don't line this fight as a minus 290. If I had lined this fight, I would probably line it like PFL Bellator style, like minus 175, minus 200. I think the minus 290 price tag's a little bit wild, bro. Like,
yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that 100%. That's why I sort of attacked it the way I did.
I just don't think that Victor Petrino is minus 290 better than Tyson Pedro. Bro, I don't know, man. There's a lot of ways Tyson Pedro could win this fight. I don't think that he should be counted out for this one. If you look at everybody on Twitter this week, they're all parlaying up Victor Petrino. He's in everybody's parlays. They're doing
that's what, I'm not parlaying him though. That was the one thing I want to be careful of. And it's not to suggest that I'm questioning my approach with it, because the one thing that I did question, I already said it earlier, was this is a little bit of a level check, right? So it is a little bit of a level check, and there is some windows. So for me, the parlay is out because I want to fucking hit the parlay this week. I want locky parlay pieces.
One last
this I like attacking by itself.
One last thing I'll add to this is
supercharged
marketing. What's the marketing behind this fight? If you look at the Brazilian fighters on this card, man, maybe Brazil's the B-side in some of these matchups. And if you look at it, maybe this could be a sneaky marketing card for the Australian. Steven Urseg's in a great spot against Matt Schnell, and Tyson Pedro put the cherry on top. I actually think that could be one way you could look at it. I think that kid Bernardo Sapage versus Vinicius Oliveira, that kid's a live dog. He can fucking strike. So I don't know. I feel like Brazil could be the sneaky B-side in the matchups, and this could be one where the bookies eat, and I kind of want to be on the side of the bookies personally.
Okay. I'm with you, and I love them. We're supercharged like that, going back and forth, a little bit of cutting off and a little bit of whatever. That's why honestly, I know we were working on getting the fan base up, but the ones that actually listen, we've seen the comments on YouTube where they love when you and I go back and forth. They love when you're like, I don't know, Cal. And that's really when we
you tell me a couple of times, I don't know about that parlay, but yeah, I mean, agree to disagree. I mean, the price tag is
styles makes fight. I'll take wrestling 4 takedowns, 70%.
I just don't think that I don't think it could be that easy, man. It's never in MMA, as we always know, it's never that easy. And if it's never that easy,
what's good about this? You and I going back and forth on this. Everybody, like you said, he is one of the darlings this week. Everybody wants to see this sort of argument, to see exactly where, so we can draw out all the spots and understand really what's going on. So definitely love that. What is your next spot that you want to bring to the table?
Man, this is one where I'm gonna have to sit on this one a little bit here, but talking about underdogs this week, I think one could come here in the first fight of the night with Lokik Rabinov versus Abdul Karim. I can't even say his last name, Al-Shawadi.
Al-Shawadi, yeah.
I feel like Lokik.
Well, that line flipped, eh? You know, that line opened up on the other side, I believe. Double check it. I know that there was at least one really giant line movement. Maybe it was Leroy Duncan and Ribeiro. It might have been Leroy Duncan and Ribeiro. Never mind.
Yeah,
my bad.
I don't know about El-Shawari's takedown defense in this fight. This just could be one of those like Lokik just takes down this dude repeatedly, time and time again, and he ends up winning a boring ass 29-28 decision. Like, if you want to bet the plus 3.5, yeah, I could definitely see it. But I feel like he's being undervalued here against Mateus Rebecki. He got knocked out in that fight, but I've been betting Lokik a couple of times since the PFL days when he fought over in that organization. And he's always a fighter that's going to give you a good solid 15 minutes. He's going to have good cardio. He's going to pursue for takedowns. And I think this is a very winnable fight. When people look at his record and they look at his losses, they'll be like, oh, you know, this dude's got a lot of losses on his record, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like some of those losses in those fights, bro, Rashma Theo, he fought for $1 million that season on the PFL season. Alex Martinez was in the title fight that season. He went on like a 5-6 fight win streak. Natan Schultz is a great journeyman. And Rashid, I can't even say his name. Rashid Magomedov. He was a part of the Khabib's camp and shit like that. So, like, bro, his losses are like, when you really dig into it, bro, his losses are against legit ass competition. And then when you look at Al Shawari's level of competition, granted, bro, Fury FC is one of the promotions near me and stuff like that in my regional scene. And those aren't the best wins, in my opinion. Like the fight against George Howdwick, that was a fight that he ended up coming in as an underdog in the Contender Series. George Howdwick doesn't do anything until the third round, but he ends up touching him up in the third round. I just feel like I think this is a market over evaluation. Dana White Contender Series fate is in play here. I think Loki's going to win a boring ass decision.
I'll tell you, this is a good spot to be on Loic as a dog. Just because when I looked at this fight, I liked Al Swati as the dog. I just see that there's value both ways on this because El Swati, like Loic's path to victory is going to be multiple takedowns with a little bit of striking mixed in. That's going to be his path to victory. And maybe he gets to a sub and or TKO on the ground. El Swati, though, very serviceable with the takedown defense on the cage. Thick dude, man, like tree trunks for legs, Palestinian. I believe he's American now, fighting out of Fortis MMA. He's a badass dude, man, and I do follow him pretty heavily. I followed him before his Dana White Contender Series, and because I was going to try to get him on the interviews, I didn't end up making him as a pick, and I fucking regret that because he ends up being a huge dog on Dana White Contender Series. I think he would present problems for Loic, but when I looked at this fight initially, before I looked at the price tag, or sorry, the lines on it, I was thinking El Swati would be the dog. I thought he was going to be a dog, but exactly flipped to what it is right now. And, Loic is somebody who, like you said, has had great ROI. You really know where his fights are going to go in PFL, and we've been able to cash on him many, many times. He goes to his game plan. He like there's no way around it. He's going to get to his game plan. He's good on the feet, but also will get to those hips as well too. But it's value. You can't say there's not value on him as the dog. I think that as far as his strength of schedule, that's the biggest plus for him in this one. And then combined with the style, I'm really leaning on wrestling more again with guys that are a little bit more active, at least with top heavy strikes. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Loic, not a bad dog. I like El Swati as even maybe a pick, but as far as betting, if I'm going to bet this fight, I'm betting Loic.
Yeah, this feels like a levels fight to me. Two different levels of competition. And secondly, I would say Tajikistan is a big market that the UFC would like to hit.
Okay, then I'm going to look at a over-under. We got Anders and Pickett. And although Anders has finished guys in fights, I've also watched Anders sit on the cage and sit in a, over-under situation on the cage in sort of like a 50-50, basically holding on for dear life at points, right? And not necessarily that he's in danger, but he just doesn't really go anywhere else with it. And I've also seen him throw some big strikes, but he is low volume. And Pickett is the same fucking thing, is absolutely the same thing. Is serviceable on the feet, but ultimately on the cage is doing the same stuff, grabbing hips, 50-50. I can see this fight going over absolutely easy. So for me, it's just, it seems like a no-brainer spot. Does Anders present maybe a level on this fight? 100%. Pickett's been finished in a couple of his fights, but Anders, to me, I don't know, man. I think he's on the tail end of his career. He is fading. I like the guy. I think he's, although he has a certain style that people don't necessarily warm up to, I still like, what he's done in his career. I've heard him talk. He seems like a great guy, but as far as his fights, I just see this going over. The over 2.5 right now is -145. That's already been hit. I just think it's a spot. I think it lands. And this is what I've been doing with a lot of my spots in the NBA. This is what I've been doing with a lot of spots in football as well too. I'm going to parlay up another time prop with that and go Anders Pickett over 1.5 because I think it's definitely going over 1.5. The KO comes out in the first round and mucks me up. It mucks me up. I'll take it. This is up to you how you hearing this stuff and how you want to play it. But Anders Pickett over 1.5 parlayed with Ribeiro Duncan fight doesn't go. The over 1.5 I haven't seen out yet. But the Duncan fight doesn't go as -400. So the -400 parlayed up with an over 1.5 with Anders Pickett would be a time prop parlay for me that I'm going to probably touch. But my play I'm putting out there to you is over 2.5 at -145. So for me, I just think that this fight is likely going to be. I don't see anybody really having a crazy advantage on the feet. It's going to be sort of sloppy, cage. Maybe someone gets a little bit of control time on the ground, but ultimately, I think it goes over for sure. Maybe a late finish, but it's likely decision cards for me on this one.
Weird one, man. Jamie Pickett's just too much of a stunt puller for me to be like when I think about this fight, it feels like the UFC is doing two favors for two guys that have had somewhat tougher fights in their last recent couple of fights. And it feels like in the matchmaker's eyes, this is like the right level of competition for both fighters, but it's not reflective in the odds. And the reason why it's because of the durability of Jamie Pickett, man. I mean, man, he is a fucking stunt puller. Like the Bo Nickel fight, he ends up getting clipped by Bo Nickel in that one. The Dennis Tululin fight, he got clipped in that one. The Kyle Dawkins fight, he got clipped before the Darce choke. The Jordan Wright fight, Jordan Wright just walked him fucking down and clipped him. And Charles Byrd on the Dana White Contender Series, his first time that he went on the Contender Series, got walked down and clipped. You got to do some. I think this is one I'm going to circle, do some deeper research on, see where Eric Anders' head is at. Because if Eric Anders is talking about he wants to fucking walk this guy down and knock him out, he could definitely do it. Is Eric your boy Anders really your boy anymore? Like he's definitely fading down in the back end of his career. So his fighting style is somewhat changed. But if we get the Eric Anders that came out against Marc-Andre Barriault in that last fight, I mean, that was a fucking barn burner in the beginning. Like it says the fight went the distance, but having Eric Anders on a ticket, that fight was a fucking barn burner. Like they were just throwing bombs at each other left and right. We got to see where this fight lands, because if this is the prelim main event, out of all the fights on this card, man, maybe I don't know. I get weird feelings for this one. This seems like a KO or a decision prop for Eric Anders, but
it's not a bad thing to investigate, though. You're saying like go online and see where his head's at. It's not a bad thing. Because if I'm going to be confident on a -145 at over 2.5, and I get the durability issues, and it's something that I looked at with Jamie Pickett as well too. It's just coming from the other end. Although there is power from Anders, I just don't believe that he's going to finish this fight. I really, really don't. I think it's going to
knowing Eric Anders from doing a couple of interviews with him at Pub Sports Radio, Eric Anders still thinks he's Alabama star linebacker, fresh from the SEC, going over to the MMA world. Like he thinks he's hot shit still. Like he still thinks he's like, like last time we did an interview with him, my man was in a sauna, cutting weight, doing a fucking StreamYard video with the thing fogging up the whole entire time, talking about how he was going to go over there and beat this dude's ass. And it was pretty funny, and like it sold me enough to throw a little bit of money on him. The interview before that, he was talking about Kyle Dawkins, and he was like, think that dude fucking knows jujitsu? I'll go over there and fucking run right through him. And he fucking goes in there, runs right through him. And then not only does he run right through him, he says, I'll run it back in your backyard and fucking Fury grappling. And I bet you I beat you in that too. So like Eric Anders is a very cocky personality. So like in his mind, if he's coming out in this interview chilling back in the fucking thing saying, yeah, this is a fight where I'm gonna knock Jamie Pickett the fuck out, hey, I might take his money's worth for it, what he might say.
Well, the value in that is he is an athlete, former football player, and if he's gonna it's a money where your mouth is type of thing. So if he puts it out there on the table, he's gonna go out and try to do it. So
he's a very cocky person.
As you poke holes in most of my card this week, I'm okay with it. It's been a while. Sometimes when we're agreeable and too agreeable, I fucking hate it. We come off the card and I'm like, something's wrong for sure. Because if we're agreeing on everything, like last week
last week
we were pretty agreeable, right? I think we find our better spots, and even at both end up doing pretty well when we sort of hash it out a bit. I still think it goes over with the way that these two come together stylistically, but I'm fully with what you're saying. There's a durability thing, and maybe looking into how Anders' mentality is going into it. And I don't normally like to play narrative on things, but if he is, if you see him in training looking a little bit more like a killer, he's at the tail end of his career though. Sounds like a Al Bundy type moment talking about football when you're like, he's like high on himself, and it's like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see.
It just
You
could
might be on a
easily
me on an over, and you on a KO prop by the end of the
Yeah,
week.
this could easily be a Eric Anders. Like how I see this fight playing out is unanimous decision 30-27, 29-28, 29-28, Eric Anders by unanimous decision, and the decision prop cashes at plus 200. But man, I mean, with Jamie Pickett's durability, I would not rule out the knockout here for Eric Anders. Like he could just get clipped with like a jab or something like that, and he'll drop. I mean, we've seen it happen before, time and time
So
again.
maybe I play it smart and look at KO decision.
Yeah, I mean, KO decision is probably
I
still
think
gonna
we
be
may
the
have just came to a spot together there because it gives me a little bit of what you're saying. You know what we did? I'm gonna do it. So what's KO decision? And I'll take a look, but I think that we just, as much as the over, I might still touch it because I'm pretty heavy on it. The KO decision might be a play that we put out there
Can I even? I mean,
because I think he's the side. I think that's clear, and I think most people see that. And I don't feel like I'm chasing an Anders prop and making this play. It's just I really feel this does stretch later.
it's just crazy when you like the fight is very binary. Plus 175 for Eric to win by decision, plus 185 for him to win by unanimous decision, but his KO prop is plus 250. Like, I mean, how wrong could you be? Like, if you bet the KO in rounds 1 or 2, I can't imagine that's probably like double the odds. So you're probably getting like plus 550 for Eric Anders to win by knockout in rounds 1 or 2 on FanDuel. And then for him to win by decision, it's probably plus 200. I mean, you could just dice it up like that and just
Okay. Yeah, that's not a bad way to do it too. Because I mean, round 3-1, they're gonna be sloppy and falling on each other if they're in round 3.
If this hits round 3, it's probably going to decision.
Yeah, because they're gonna be sloppy all over the place. I can't see anything really landing that would be of any consequence. Yeah, okay. You know what? Once again, another great spot. I think we sort of hashed that out. So, when you're listening in, you may have already had a feeling of how you were going to attack this fight. And hopefully we answer some questions for you and you listening to our dumbasses hash it out and figure it out. So bring your third and final spot to the table, sir. Or that's it, isn't it?
This is third and final spot for me. This is a fight where I just thought the round 3 odds were significantly lower than what you would normally see for round 3, and deservedly so because it feels like the fight's going to play out like that. Javid Basharat versus Iman Zahabi here. This seems like a unanimous decision written all over it for Javid Basharat. If you look at his round props, his round 1's plus 500, round 2's plus 600, and round 3's plus 650. I mean, plus 650 on a round 3 prop, like that's super low. This feels like a round 3/decision written all over it. Be interested to see where those odds come out on DraftKings and FanDuel. But I think this is a very winnable fight for Javid Basharat versus a guy where Zahabi is very talented. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing powerful that's really coming Javid Basharat's way. So I feel like Basharat should be able to style on the feet with him and then be able to mix in a couple of takedowns, which would ultimately give him just enough control time to win this fight by unanimous decision. Might get a couple advantageous positions where the Javid Basharat sub-bettors are jumping out of their seat, but he ends up going back for the control time. Very smart IQ fighter, very high on him, trains out there in Las Vegas. So this is a fight basically in his backyard. So another day in the office here for Javid Basharat.
So I'm going to affirm your position, but I'm going to correct slightly how you got there. One of the only things that Iman Zahabi actually presents is power. He's low volume. The grappling's, decent, but the only thing he really does present is power. So how you get this to a decision is a guy like, Basharat, he's just smart. And his striking style, and this is how Zellhuber this is going to be like play out like Zellhuber and Prot. He's going to play a distance game. He's going to pick apart, damage up the face of Zahabi. I wanted to try to be a homer on this one and look at the dog play because maybe a big shot lands. Is this the guy we finally fade Basharat with? It's not. It's actually a perfect recipe for Basharat to want to stay away from the power and actually just play a smart game plan. He doesn't need to force anything in this fight. He'll probably go to a decision. An over is a good bet on this as well too. 100% I'm with you on this. I think Basharat's proven that he's a decision guy, and not necessarily because he can't finish people, because he's been in trouble at points, but it's mostly because he plays a smart game. He doesn't want to really overcommit. He doesn't need to. He wants to get to that top level. If something presents itself, he'll take it. He has a great ground game, some pretty serviceable wrestling, and his striking is, absolutely solid. And I don't think he needs to even get to the grappling realm. I think Zahabi will probably throw, half amount of strikes in a 3-round decision. And I think that you're going to probably see Zahabi sort of chasing down Basharat as he sort of moves around and is slick with his striking and just touches up the face of Zahabi, taking out the lead wheel of Zahabi as well too. Even switching stances, landing the body kick as well too. So yeah, I'm with you on this one. I just think that stylistically, it's one thing I've really been analyzing. Chris Prickett from Niagara Top Team has really got this burned into my head. It's look at the stylistic matchup. And the reason why I went Zellhuber decision in my head was exactly why. It's power coming your way, and you want to play smart game plan and stay away from the power and try to outpoint somebody. And I think that's going to happen a lot.
How's Zahabi's takedown defense? Because you're a little bit more well-versed on Zahabi, because I really just remember him from the Ricardo Ramos fight, the Vince Morales fight, and the Draco fight, and the Ricky Turquoise fights. And you are right. If I look out of those fights, he is knocking people out in the first round. So maybe my read on Zahabi is wrong. How's his takedown defense?
But it still got you to, ultimately where I think it's gonna be. But his takedown defense is actually, what are we looking at? I'm actually just gonna pull up the number. It's 75%. But if you look at it, let's actually break down a couple of his fights to see, where he went up against some wrestlers maybe. And actually maybe it was. See, Vince Morales, Draco Rodriguez, Tercios. No, it's mostly people that are going to stand with him. Richie Lang, he hasn't really faced somebody that's going to try to take him down. So that's an angle too for Basharat if he finds a takedown, because he will go for it. If it's there to present itself, he will take it.
He's definitely shooting a takedown. Like he does this. He does this thing where he'll stand on the feet with you. You think the shit's close, the round's close, and then he ends up getting this trip takedown up against the cage. And he ends up securing the round. You're like, all right, well, even if that round was close, he just ended up on top for like the last minute.
He hasn't been
Ricardo Ramos
taken down in. Zahabi hasn't been taken down in 4 fights, but I don't know how many. I don't have the numbers in front of me from how many attempts were taken on him.
Ricardo Ramos took him down 3 times.
Yeah, Ramos took him down 3 times. Vieira took him down 2 times. That's a little bit of time ago. That's back 2017. But we'll see, man. I think Basharat will be able to take him down too. I just think he is. I don't think he's going to necessarily be able to sub him easily, which also leads to the decision for me, or the over. Maybe hit the over as a backup. I don't know what the line's sitting at. That it might be chalk. But yeah, I like the Basharat decision. I think it's the way to play it. Maybe even KO decision. But
line's getting juiced. The money line's getting juiced, but I wouldn't mind throwing him in a parlay this week. It just feels like in a lot of these spots that he's fighting these people, some of these fights, maybe he's not at his peak level there that day, or maybe the fight's a little bit closer than what the couple of spots are, but he ends up fighting through the adversity pretty easily here in his UFC fights. Remember,
this is a matchup for him, man.
Yeah, was it the Kevin Jones fight that his leg was literally like lifted up above his head like a ballerina? And he was and the dude was trying to leg kick Zahabi's leg, and he's hopping on one leg like a fucking pogo stick, defending a takedown. I remember against the Mateus Madanka fight, he got clipped a couple of times in that one, and just kind of ate him.
Yeah, we will see. I think it's a sharp spot. I think that a lot of people are waiting to fade Javid. I just think that this stylistic matchup isn't the one. Sure, could Zahabi land a big overhand from maybe a misstep of Javid? Yeah, sure, that could 1000% happen. But I just don't see that happening here. Not in this spot, not with this matchup. So sharp spot. Let's build our parlay. I think a 2-piece parlay is in store, and I think we've already solidified it with Makayev as potentially a piece. But
have 3 on this card.
What's that?
Probably gonna have to go 3 legs on this card.
I'm not even opposed to that because I see 3 spots as well too. So we'll go Makayev as the first spot, and then you bring another spot to the table.
It's a little bit juicier than what I would like to do, but this is just the theme of the card this week. You have I think it's 5 or 4 favorites over the minus 350 threshold. So you're gonna have to do what you're gonna have to do for the parlays this week. It reminds me of like a PFL Bellator type of parlay that last week that ended up hitting pretty easily. Shouts to AJ McKee. Looked great in that play. Bashara is the second leg here.
So we'll go Mikhaev, we'll go Bashara, and for the third and final leg,
There's
a lot of people, if this was other people, a lot of people would be on Petrino here. We're sort of split on that. That won't happen. And I'm glad. I don't want to make that a piece. Just throw in I can't do Umar Nurmagomedov at that price. I can't
Umar's gonna win the fight, but I mean do what you want with it. You know, it's one of those type of fights. Like
what about Leroy Duncan and Ribeiro not going the distance? Can you actually see that fight going the distance? I really can't see that fight going the distance. I just can't. Someone's going to sleep.
I feel more confident in Leroy Duncan's side than the fight doesn't go to distance for parlays. I mean, I think Leroy Duncan, that fight kind of
been hit though. He's been. That's the only thing about him. And I looked at this fight and I was like, I was going to make him. He's been hit though, and Ribeiro presents power on the other end. And I think that at this level, I don't know how comfortable I am. Like someone like a Basharat not getting hit the way what I think, a full-on strike, I'm good with because he knows how to sort of tail off strikes and not take the full amount.
Though, like I see the first round being very close, and then the second and third round heavily favors Chris Duncan. I feel like, but I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to parlay it.
You think maybe a little bit Klein just swims through Cunningham or what?
I actually think he does swim through Cunningham.
Okay, we'll make him. I think he does too. I mean, I don't know too much about Cunningham at this point. I've seen a little bit on him, but the reality is
him getting finished in the Dana White Contender Series.
What's that?
I remember him getting knocked out by the Chinese dude on the Dana White Contender Series. We ended up fading the Chinese dude against Cameron Simon. What was his name? Steven Nugent. He knocked out AJ Cunningham. And I mean, say what you want about Steven Nugent. Steven Nugent is on my fade list for regional scene fighters. Not faded him.
I love your mispronunciation, and I sometimes wonder if you're trying to trail Son in it on purpose. Nguyen.
He hasn't been good enough for me to remember his name. I remember him as the Chinese dude that
it's all good.
With a fucking 19-year-old South African kid that nobody knew of.
But for me, with like even sort of going a little bit blind on the Cunningham side of things, it's more of a systems thing. When you have a Dana White Contender Series guy who's lost, even though he was able to win his last fight, on the regional scene, it's not coming in on short notice. It's just not going to play well. Like Klein's going to beat the fuck out of him. Klein's going to beat him on the feet, take him down, ragdoll him, do whatever he wants to do to him. So, I think that's a good spot. Then we'll go Klein, Mikhaev, and Basharat. And what does that give us, sir?
Klein, Mikhaev, Basharat. I'll probably say off the top of my head, probably somewhere around minus 130. Let me check on FanDuel.
Yeah, FanDuel's usually the best one to parlay them up.
Basharat, Klein, Mikhaev, minus 148.
Ooh, that's a little chalky for a 3-piece. But
that's why I said, like, it's going to be one of those type of cards. You're just going to have to do what you're going to have to do. I feel like if you think that these people are going to win.
No, fuck it. Let's ride with it. Minus 148.
You want to bet plus money? You want to bet plus money on these fights? The plus money spots will come next
in the props. The round, I think but I think there's some plus money spots, but I think it's in the props. It's just you got to hope you're on the right fight when you attack your props as far as the round props. There's a couple spots though.
Yeah, like to be honest with you, man, I mean, it feels like one of those type of spots where the value boys are gonna make their cases for some spots here, and some of them are gonna cash and some of them aren't. And a couple of these big favorites are going to lose on this card. When you have a card where every fight is minus 250 or more, besides the first fight of the night, I mean, the first fight of the night and the last fight of the night are the only two fights that are under a minus 250 threshold, there's going to be some underdogs that are going to win on this card.
All right, I think we found some good spots. I think we were able to chop. I like when we sort of hash it out like that. I feel a lot more clear about some things. See, I felt really confident about things. Now I don't as much, but at least we found ways to like that decision KO prop for Anders is probably something that I'll be putting out as a play now. But yeah, no, I think we found some good spots. Moving forward, we are going to do our best with trying to pre-shoot a week ahead. The best results as far as more people getting on the actual viewership, and also, winning plays. The earlier we get on things, the better. As we change lines, as things come out throughout the week, we'll throw out different things on Twitter and whatever else, and that'll change. But if we can get early and beat a couple lines and whatever else, some spots you want to wait till later in the week, some spots you want to wait till weigh-ins. It's just better. It's better if we can get it out early. It's not always going to happen though. So, I was going to try to go with the early tap. We were doing the early tap as a show. It's not going to be the case. If, say, Billy and I or myself on my own, I get something out the week ahead and we have something come out on Saturday or Sunday the week prior, that'll be the early tap. If not, and we get it out through the week, that'll just be Don't Tap Podcast. It's all the same thing. I know it's only branding, whatever else, but I know a lot of people are sort of excited about getting us getting things out as early as possible. We would do our best to do that. The couch versus the coach. Now, the couch versus the coach, the challenge is getting fighters and cappers together to shoot an episode. We only missed 1 week last week, and for that, there was also other scenarios that sort of went into that. There was reasons why we missed the episode. Rest in peace to Ashley Nichols as well too. I just didn't feel up to really shooting the pass a little bit, and I didn't really want to bug fighters, and I wanted to leave Niagara Top Team alone, which is where I pull a lot of people from. But on the podcast this week, and I will come out and say it because we've already talked about how we were going to break it all down. We have Dissection of Violence coming up against a man who now has a chip on his shoulder. He's not the anointed one anymore. He's not the great white hope. He's a guy who lost in a situation that didn't look good, one that everybody's going to be fading now, and he's going to prove you all wrong in Michael Malott. So Mike Malott will be on the show, and he's going to break down and bring his 3 spots for this upcoming card, and they're going to go head-to-head. Really looking forward to that. Now, I probably won't talk to him too much about the fight this week, but we are going to talk and hash it out. And I do have a couple of reels that are pretty solid. I have a reel of Malott, basically, like it plays back through the loss, and he's laying on the ground, and it's like he's thinking back through Magny doing what he's doing, and then it's like him putting in the work. It's some good shit. So I'm looking forward to that. And I know everybody loves the reels too. But on the out, that's what I had to say. Anything that you want to add as we exit?
Yeah. Once March Madness is over and we don't have college basketball, probably see a lot more MMA content just in general from me. So we're in the thick of things. It's a couple days towards March in general, and then March Madness comes around, and then that's just a crazy time of year. I think it's like, I would say that in the Super Bowl like time of season is probably like the busiest time for me. March Madness is just a crazy time of year. Games all like
that's your bread and butter though. Like you need to focus on that's what got you to the table. That's what got you to doing capping. Knowing, basketball is your biggest thing, whether it's college and or NBA. So, and man, those NBA props have been quite nice lately. When you have like a sort of a corral of say 5 players that you go to that consistently push over 20 points, and the bookies continuously bounce the line value up and down, and you can make advantageous plays on chalk parlays and whatever else, they hit just pretty much all. I've learned quite a bit most recently, as well as with laddering up certain props. So definitely NBA props. I'm looking forward to next year because I don't know how we're going to approach it, but I want to get into more sports capping, not just doing MMA. Because I think I'm actually, I don't want to say it on my MMA podcast, I think I'm better at capping it NBA and NFL. I love breaking down fights and I love chopping it up and getting people on shows and stuff. But I think I've been stronger this year with NBA and NFL, and no one really knows what my plays have been because I don't put them out. So Need to
You
change
gotta
that.
start turning it up, man. I mean, spring, summertime's coming. Big UFC cards coming up in the upcoming weeks. So it's just the best time of year to be a fight fan. As the summer comes along, more and more fight cards will be revealed. And the way Dana White's been talking about UFC 306, shit, it might be better than fucking UFC 300. We might be fighting in the spirit at the end of next summer with a lot of the people that we saw last week on that card. So it's a great time of year to be a fight fan. My guy himself comes up next week, and we're going to make some money on him. Get used to the bobblehead. Get used to the face. Rob Davashili, you're next.
Man, I think I don't know. We'll see. We shall see.
When do you have a title fight that already has the next title fight decided right after? They're not even saying. They're not
I'll
even
be on the
saying,
same side with you,
Cheeto,
likely
it could
next
be
week.
Cheeto or Sugar. They're saying, yo, Sugar's fighting Marab next. Like, damn, like this is one of those ones. I feel the script is in play for next week, and hopefully we got an early reveal.
What's the line at right now for that?
For
For the championship fight?
minus 215.
Yeah, I mean, and for the champ, obviously, which is crazy because he's minus 215 and he lost to Cheeto Vera before. But I mean, it was leg kick. That's something that I think that Sean O'Malley, who's pretty high fight IQ, can figure out, right? And
He was
be
also
able to
coming
check
off
those.
a suspension.
Yeah, but I think like he can game plan around that and work away from those leg kicks. Cheeto Vera just finds ways to lose. He's slow every round. You know that he's slow volume coming out in the first round. And I don't know, man. I just think he doesn't play up to his potential on the feet. He is. You see him cut his hair and change it. I know I mentioned this, but there's red flags about people. He cuts his hair all the damn time. He changes his look all the damn time. He's on ayahuasca trips all the damn time, searching for certain things. He's on a journey that's not just MMA. And I think that's a good way to describe it. He looks like he's not quite there in MMA when he's in the cage at times. He's such a talented striker and actually has a style that could fucking cut through Sean O'Malley, but I don't know if he has the mentality to. So I think he loses pretty handily, and then Merab Dvalishvili is going to take down O'Malley 1,000 times and beat him to a solid decision and win the belt.
I actually think that O'Malley's gonna win a unanimous decision in the Cheeto fight, just off the way Cheeto fights, very low volume. And I think if he fights Merab, he's gonna have to knock him the fuck out.
Yeah,
Merab,
he will. Early, he's gonna have to knock him out, and or like I don't know, have some kind of sneaky jits game lined up for it. He's gonna have to have some kind of sneaky.
It could be the Aljo
leverage
thing
or
all
whatever.
over again. It could be the Aljo thing all over again. We're talking about the grappling. Maybe it might not even get there. The Ray Merab,
But that's even an angle way to play it.
Merab almost got dropped by Henry Cejudo in the first 2 minutes of that fight. Like it does.
You could probably find value in playing Merab decision because I don't think Merab finishes O'Malley inside the distance, and then like both sides of the coin. I'm sure there's a way to play that double, and I will probably be all over it. So, but on that note, I do got to cut it out here. For Billy Briz of Pub Sports Radio, for Callum McGregor of Donttap Podcast, tune into the Donttap Podcast. We out.
Until next week.
Until next week.
To me, the Lions are the number one rankings out there. Those guys are the ones who really do their homework.
Man, that's why I'm saying the rankings are bullshit.
Motherfucker from Canada.
Got a really high fight IQ.
For this fight, I'm telling you, it's a flip of a coin.
Levels to the shit.
So many high-level guys.
So like the line is crazy.
Oh, there we go. No, we're good. See, he's a pro.